Hey guys, it's me, Seren, back with another video. It's Tuesday, September 23rd, and this video uh, is kind of going to be based around this New York Times interview that I'm sure you guys have all seen and read the multiple response pieces. It really blew up the internet recently. And I wanted to make a video about it, but I had trouble deciding what path I wanted to take because I felt like there were a lot of already really well done responses. I'm going to be including links to my favorite responses that all kind of highlight why this New York Times article was offensive and incendiary. And for any of you that may not have heard about it, the New York Times ran a piece. I believe the piece appeared on the internet on their website on Friday. It ran in the Sunday paper. And as of yesterday, Monday, it got all this, backlash. One of their writers, I believe her name is Alessandra Stanley, she's their chief television critic. She wrote a piece about Shonda Rhimes, who's a really famous, television producer and creator. And the piece was about Shonda Rhimes' new show that she's working on called How to Get Away with Murder, starring Viola Davis. And the Times writer first, she wrongly refers to Shonda Rhimes as the creator of the show, which she's not. She's just a producer on the show. And then she went on to she called Shonda Rhimes an angry black woman. And she went on to kind of describe how Shonda Rhimes has taken the stereotype of an angry black woman and turned it on its head and made it enviable. And, she just wrote a ton of inflammatory stuff. A lot of people were really offended. Shonda Rhimes herself was extremely offended. She took to Twitter to talk about it. Kerry Washington, who stars on Scandal, which is like the hugest show ever that Shonda Rhimes did create, she took to Twitter. Some of her other co-stars took to Twitter. And people have really just been lighting into the New York Times and lighting into this writer for, first of all, using the stereotype of angry black woman to describe Rhimes, as well as her female characters, when this is a trope, it's a stereotype, and it's offensive. There's really no point. You're a writer. You went to journalism school. I also went to journalism school. You know how to use words. You know how to use descriptions. You learned in school, hopefully, how to write a piece without relying on stereotypes and tropes. And this is also an offensive trope, not just to black women, but to women as a whole, because it relies on a sexist, kind of the angry black woman. It would be the same thing if she had used a trope about, the emotional woman, the emotional boss. It's kind of like we don't call men angry, right? We call men powerful. We call men forceful. We call men take charge, go-getters, These emotions, emotional, angry, these are put on women and on black women in particular. So a lot of people, even white women, found it to be really offensive. Like, whoa, like, where do you get off, using this trope of angry black woman as the way to open your piece? And then to just further, she went on to describe her characters, her black Rhymes's black female characters as sexual predators, angry. She called Viola Davis not classically beautiful, which got a lot of people upset. Like, what the hell, is she not classically beautiful because she's black, because she's dark-skinned? There was a lot wrong with this article. But as I said, I don't really want to go into that because I'm sure anyone that reads the article knows what's wrong with it. This video is going to be about accountability, because this is something that I don't really see a lot of people discussing, and it's something that I think is kind of getting swept under the rug, and I think it's important. Something that's kind of related to this, St. Louis County Police has gotten in trouble for releasing a flyer for a series of workshops that they're going to be doing with police about media training and handling the media, because we can all agree that St. Louis and Ferguson PD handled the media all wrong with this Michael Brown thing. And they released a flyer saying that used a lot of incendiary terms like feeding the animals and gorillas and things like that. They issued a public apology, if not today, Tuesday, then yesterday, Monday, for the wording on the flyer, saying that the use of the phrases feeding the animals and gorillas was not meant to be offensive, and it was referring to the media, and maybe they could have used a better choice of words. And I feel like this is related to the New York Times article because yesterday, Monday, one of the chief editors wrote kind of a public response to the backlash. I'm going to read some of it to you. So the editor kind of outlines what happens. And then she says at a certain point, I have asked Ms. Stanley for further comment, and she has said that her intentions were misunderstood and seemed to blame the Twitter culture for that with the reference to 140 characters, which Alessandra Stanley gave this really defensive response saying, basically, my piece was good, and if you read past the first 140 characters, you would know that. Kind of saying, like, we're all dumb and we didn't get the point of her piece when... bitch, we read your piece, and it was racist, and you're also probably racist. And then the editor goes on to say that I've asked the culture editor, Daniel Mattoon, to discuss the article and the editing process, because it turned out that 3 other editors also read this piece before it went to publish and felt like it was fine. So... the editor kind of goes on to say, 3 other editors read this piece, felt like it was fine. Clearly, we have an issue here at the New York Times, with diversity, because the 3 editors that read the piece were white, and clearly they were tone deaf to the racism of the piece because they're white. They couldn't fully grasp how it might be offensive to women of color because they are white, And she says, clearly we have a blind spot here at the Post. And there are some big questions here about diversity, about editing procedures, and about how the Times deals with stories about women and race. They are worth exploring in depth. The readers and commentators are correct, not right. The readers and commentators are correct to protest the story. Intended to be in praise of Miss Rhimes, it delivered that message in a condescending way that was, at best, astonishingly tone-deaf and out of touch. And then she put an update yesterday. The cultural editor, Daniel Mattoon, gave a public apology? I don't know. I'll read it to you. She told me that arts and culture editors are well aware of the response to the piece, and she offered words of regret as well as an explanation and a resolution for the future. There was never any intent to offend anyone, and I deeply regret that it did. Alessandra used a rhetorical device to begin her essay, and because the piece was so largely positive, we as editors weren't sensitive enough to the language being used. There were multiple editors, at least 3, that read the article in advance, but none of them raised any objections or questioned the elements of the article that have been criticized. This is a signal to me that we have to constantly remind ourselves as editors of our blind spots, what we don't know, and how readers may react. So basically what she's saying is we're all white girls, we're all white women, and we found it fine, so clearly we have a diversity issue. But what point it came out to me was there was never any intent to offend anyone, and I deeply regret that it did. The St. Louis PD said practically the same thing, right? There was never any intent to offend anyone. They said the flyer was sent by our police academy, and we apologize for anyone hurt by the wording of the flyer. We meant no racial harm. Where's the accountability? There's no accountability whatsoever. And I feel like no one's talking about that, and I feel like it's problematic. We've kind of reached this point where people feel like they can say and do whatever they want and just issue an apology and say, oh, I didn't mean it, and we kind of all move on. That's not enough. That's not enough by far, There has to be some type of accountability. It's not good enough to say, well, we meant no racial harm. We didn't intend to have any racial undertones. Because what does that mean, right? Basically, that means you're saying, I didn't knowingly, willingly go out of my way to be a racist. And that's well and that's fine, but I've already made countless other videos, what video is this? 13, 14, and this has been mentioned in practically all of my videos about the subconscious layer of racism that's pretty much underneath everything we do in our American society. So I feel like it's not enough for people to say, "Oh, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to offend you," because that's not enough. If I accidentally shoot and kill someone, unless I'm a cop, unless I'm Darren Wilson, I'm probably going to go to jail. I'm going to get arrested and I'm going to go to jail. And, of course, if it was or wasn't an accident, it's going to, have an effect on, how my trial goes and things like that. But at the end of the day, I did kill someone. It doesn't matter what my intent was. And people seem to be under the illusion that intent changes the outcome. It doesn't matter if you were not, intending to be racist when you called Shonda Rhimes an angry black woman. It doesn't matter what your intent was. It doesn't matter. And then Alessandra Stanley, also yesterday, she gave a more detailed update. I will include, links, of course, where she says, kind of more of the same thing. It was updated 2:30 p.m. yesterday, Monday. In the review, I referenced a painful and insidious stereotype solely in order to praise Miss Rhimes and her shows for traveling so far from it. If making that connection between the two offended people, I feel bad about that. But I think that a full reading allows for a different takeaway than the loudest critic took. So basically she's saying, sorry, not sorry. I'm sorry it made you feel that way, which is not a real apology. That's a very passive-aggressive, nasty way of apologizing, right? Like, oh, I stepped on your foot and broke your toe. Sorry, your foot hurts. You're not apologizing for stepping on someone's foot and breaking their toe. It doesn't matter if you meant to step on their foot and break their toe or not. Like, bitch, you stepped on their foot and you broke their fucking toe. And you need to give them a real apology. There's no accountability. There's no taking responsibility. There's no trying to understand why people are offended. There's just this, like, throwing your hands up in the air and saying, I wrote the piece, it is what it is. I wasn't trying to offend anyone, and I don't care. Same thing with the St. Louis PD, We put out the flyer. We use the terms feed the animals and 900-pound gorilla. All terms that do have racial undertones. These are trigger words. We have seen video of St. Louis and Ferguson police calling the protesters fucking animals. We have seen them using racially, charged language when they talk about Michael Brown, saying he charged, at Darren Wilson like a 900-pound gorilla. You can't just take no responsibility for what you did. You did it. Where is the accountability? And she kind of goes on. The same applies to your question about less than classically beautiful. Viola Davis said it about herself in the New York Times Magazine more bluntly. Okay, Alessandra Stanley, I see where you're going with this. You're one of those people that feel like you should be able to say the word nigga because we say the word nigga, okay? Viola Davis can recognize that she's a dark-skinned woman and what that means for her because she grew up every day with her dark skin. You, white lady, you can't do that, okay? You don't have any type of business. What is the word I want? You don't have her permission, to go around calling her less than classically beautiful. I can't call you less than classically beautiful because you're white. I can't say, look at this pasty pale white bitch. I can't do that. And I definitely can't do that in a critical piece in the New York Times, okay? No, accountability. And she kind of just goes on and on, like, I didn't think the Times readers, this piece is very whiny. It doesn't sound like a full-grown woman giving an apology. It's whiny. I didn't think the Times readers would take the opening sentence literally because I so often write arc provocative leads that are then undercut or mitigated by the paragraphs that follow. Bitch, I went to journalism school. I know what you're saying. Like, you write a flashy lead, you write a lead-in, to grab attention. You want attention. You're basically a tabloid writer that writes for the New York Times. Regrettably, this stereotype is still too incendiary to raise even in arguing that Miss Rhimes had killed it once and for all. Now, mind you, if you actually read her piece does not argue that Shonda Rhimes killed the stereotype. Her piece argues that Shonda Rhimes embraced the stereotype, put the stereotype on her characters and kind of flipped it on its head and made it something to aspire to. She did not at any point in her article say that Shonda Rhimes moved away from the stereotype. She said herself if Shonda Rhimes wrote her autobiography, it would be called How to Make It as an Angry Black Woman or something like that. So this is not an apology, right? There's no type of accountability. Of course, issues of diversity and the New York Times within the editors, that's an issue. And I should probably make another video about that, because I read another really great article about, they have the same problem over at Politico. Politico has like 200 staffers, and I want to say only one of them is a black male, and only one of them is a woman, and the rest are like all straight white dudes. Like, these major media outlets have huge issues with diversity, and of course when you don't have enough diversity, you're going to have blind spots, because you're all pretty much thinking the same. Like, if all you have are straight white men, they're probably not going to have the same opinion as a straight white woman, or a gay white woman, or a gay white man, or a straight black woman, or a gay Hispanic man. Like, they're all pretty much going to have the same opinion. And of course, there's going to be blind spots in your editing, where 3 editors can read an article titled Shonda Rhimes' autobiography will be called How to Succeed as an Angry Black Woman, and everyone would think that was okay. Like, I've already mentioned in other videos how white women have decided they like the term angry black woman, but that's neither here nor there. There's still no accountability, There's all this, we need to have discussions about diversity, discussions about diversity at the New York Times, discussions about, the blind spots in our editing, discussions about the tone deafness of the article, which I've talked about in other videos, how white people are very out of touch with black culture. They have no idea what goes on in black culture. They have no idea what is and isn't offensive. They live in a world of their own making, and they have no type of understanding of other people, period. But even still, where's the accountability? Where is the true, firm apology? Where is the admittance that you did something wrong? Moving forward, it's not going to happen again, and you're going to work to ensure that you increase diversity, that you increase the editing process, that you listen to the critique of your commentators, because people are calling for this chick to get fired, Alessandra Stanley. Like, they want her out. And there's just, like, no accountability whatsoever. People just say, oh, I didn't intend to be racist, and they move on. That's not enough, People come forward all the time in these cases and say, I can't believe you would say that Darren Wilson is a racist. I can't believe you would say that George Zimmerman is a racist. He's a Hispanic. George Zimmerman is a white Hispanic. He's Hispanic. How can he be racist? There's no way he was racist, They'll come forward themselves and say, I'm not racist. There was no type of racial intent behind my shooting. And the reason why they feel that they can say this is because when George Zimmerman, for example, shot Trayvon Martin, at no point, and I'm sure of this, so I'm just going to say it, at no point did he think, I'm going to shoot this kid because he's black. I'm shooting him because he's black. At no point did that thought cross his mind. However, what did cross his mind? This kid looks like he's on drugs. He looks like he's hopped up on something. Why are his hands in his pockets? Why is he wearing a hoodie? Why is he walking around this neighborhood? These assholes always get away. This is racially charged language to the point where you don't have to physically have the thought, I want to kill this kid because he's black, but all these other thoughts that you're having revolve around the fact that this is a black kid and his blackness scares you and makes you uncomfortable, So it's essentially the same thing. These are racist thoughts. This is racist ideology, and at the end of the day, you did kill him because he was black. But people feel like they're able to say, I'm not a racist, I never actually had the thought, Like I've said in other videos, diet racism, new racism, these kind of more insidious forms of racism. This is not racism that hides under a white hood at Klan meetings. This is the racism that you have in the back of your mind that colors everything you do and say and write, Alessandra Stanley, and speak and think, and all of your daily interactions with people. And it's still racist, and it's still racism, and there needs to be some type of accountability, not just to throw your hands up in the air and say, I'm not racist. It was never my intent to be racist. It was never my intent to offend people. It was never our intent, St. Louis PD, to use racially charged language talking about feed the animals, you know? Oh, it was never our intent. We weren't trying to be racist. We weren't trying to hurt anyone. But you were racist, and you did hurt people, and you need to apologize, and you need to take accountability, and you need to work on it, you know? And it seems like this is a really difficult concept for white people to grasp. And it's just like accountability. Accountability. We really need to move forward and push it and force it, you know. I'm glad that the Times is getting this backlash. I'm glad that the Vogue articles got backlash, you know. People are really getting to a point where they're getting fed up. Like, it's sad that I can make videos every single week about some new racist shit that happened on a mainstream level. The New York Times is one of the largest newspapers in the country, all the news that's fit to print. Vogue is like the premier fashion magazine in the country, the fashion Bible. And they still think it's okay to go with these racist pieces until they get backlash. And then they get the backlash and they're surprised. They don't understand because why? It was never their intent to be racist or to hurt anyone. You know? Intent is not enough. If you're doing it, you're doing it. Period. Accountability. And that goes for your friends that make racist jokes, your friends that put up racist YouTube videos, you know, but will say, oh, I'm not racist, I date a black person, I do this, I do that. Hold them accountable. We need to keep holding these people accountable until they realize we're done, we're fed up. So I'm like, everyone that can leave a comment, can read an article, can send an email, please do it. Like I said, I'm gonna post links, and it's troubling, it's disheartening that it's 2014 and people have like lulled themselves into thinking that just because their intent is not racist, that matters. Like, it doesn't matter. If I fucking stab you in the chest and then say my bad, I didn't mean to kill you, like, who cares? It's not enough. So thank you everyone that watched this video. Please check out the links. They're super interesting. Read the editor's note on the Times and let me know what you guys think, because glad I don't subscribe to the Times anymore. I would be canceling my subscription. So happy Tuesday. Hope you guys are having a good week and food for thought as always. Talk to you guys next time.